Audio Jungle. 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 Audio Jungle.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your computer science teacher, Sir Fawad Akhtar Ansari. Now we are about to make a program of this question using switch statement. Switch statement is also known as case statement, right? So using switch statement or using case statement, write a program in which the user types his own ID and password. If the ID is correct, then print ID, print correct ID, else print incorrect ID. Same as this, if password is correct, the program will print correct password, else print incorrect ID and password. User ID is 200 and password is 4 times 0 for initialization, means user and password is the constant value. Now we try to make a program and see what happens. Okay, now this is the program that I made. I use a variable ID and data type is integer. Then I use a variable pwd and the data type is integer. Now next step is we used to take the input from the user. When we take the input from the user, we use console.write, and then in the inverted commas we used to type our message, whatever we want to communicate with the user. Whatever ID we will input, our console application will read that line and put it in the ID variable. The same way, when we take the password from the user, console application will read that line and it will put in the password variable pwd. Now next is the important part of the program, that we are using the switch statement or case statement. So first case, we used to take ID. When we input 200, which is a constant value, so it will accept our ID and it will display the message correct user ID. Case else, that what happens if the user input another value except the 200, then it will print incorrect user ID, and then this case is closed and slapped. Now next case is the password pwd. If we input 4 times 0, then it will display the message correct password using the right line command. And then case else, if the password is other than 4 times 0, then it will display incorrect user password. Okay, and this case is also and console.read. Now we used to test our program. Now we input our user ID, which is 200, and the password is 4 times 0. Now I press enter. Correct user ID, correct password. When I press enter, it will shut off the program. Now we do some test. What if I input invalid ID? Let's suppose I input 1 2 3 and I input invalid password, incorrect user ID and incorrect password. This is a test 2. Now we do next test. User ID. What if I input correct user ID and incorrect password? What it will do? Correct user ID and incorrect user password. Now we do next test. We input wrong ID and we input correct password. Now let's see what happens. Incorrect user ID, but the password is correct. So this is the small program that we use to make with a case statement. I hope you understood. Let's meet in the next class. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.